Good morning, Conway. This is Miss Woodward, and it's time for Ghost. We are on Chapter 3, World Record for the Most Altercations. What do they call criminal records? Not criminal records. They call them something else. Rap sheets. Yeah, that's it, rap sheets, which is such a dumb name because it makes me think of rap music, like maybe a rap sheet is what rappers write their rhymes down on. But yeah, rap sheets. I got one of those. Not a real one, though. One that real criminals have. Nah. I got a school rap sheet, but in school they call it a file. I got a file, and even though I've never actually seen it, it has to be pretty big because I'm always being sent down to the principal's office, or put in detention, or suspended for shutting people down for talking smack. Oh, Castle, why are your clothes so big? Why your pants so small? Why your name Castle? Why you always smell like you walked 1,000 miles to get here? Why it look like somebody tried to cut your hair with a butter knife? And my response would be, well, let's just use the schooly terms, not exemplary behavior. But I'd made a decision that there would be no more entries added to the file. The file would be closed forever because now my new career in track, which was really my soon-to-be career in basketball, was at stake. All of a sudden, I had too much on the line. There would be no more altercations. That's the word Principal Marshall always used on the phone with my mother. Altercations. And I was altercation-free for 17 hours and 2 minutes. 2 of those hours were spent watching one of those corny, romantic, mushy movies with my mom. She loves those things, and every night when we're eating dinner, she sits on our couch in the living room and watches one while opening mail and clipping coupons. I always spread all my blankets out on the floor, 3 or 4 to make what Ma calls a pallet, which is where I eventually doze off. She takes the couch. We haven't slept in our room since Dad. It's too weird for her to try to sleep in the room they slept in. And I got this thing about being as close to the door as possible, just in case we have to get up and run again. Plus, now that I've gotten older, I just want to make sure I'm near her in case I got to protect her. So yeah, there were 2 hours, 9 p.m. Then I was asleep for 10 hours. I'm grumpy when I don't get at least 8. Some people would say I'm grumpy even when I do, but they don't know nothing. 7 a.m. Snooze, 7:05 a.m. Snooze, 7:10 a.m. Cass, get your butt up for school. I'm not playing. 7:20 a.m. Lay there looking around the living room. Up at the light in the ceiling, the glass thing that covers the bulb has dead bugs in it. Under the couch, there are toys that I don't ever remember playing with. Looking at the pictures on the wall. Me at 9, me at 8, and at 7 when Ma was experimenting with giving me a mohawk. But no pictures of the family. Then finally, it was time to get up, 8 a.m. 10 minutes spent in the shower, 10 minutes getting dressed, and 10 minutes eating breakfast. Toast with peanut butter and honey, 8:30 a.m. 17 minutes walking to school, 8:47 a.m. Homeroom dismissed, 9:10 a.m. 45 minutes in English class, where we were reading Lord of the Flies, which, by the way, is a crazy book, 10 a.m., then 45 minutes in math class, which was basically 45 minutes of Maureen Thorne raising her hand every single time Mr. Granger asked a question so that she could go up to the board and write the answer. Such a show-off. She's like the geeky girl version of Lou. So yeah, what happened? 10:50 a.m. And then there was social studies class, which I usually call nap time because we never study nothing social, like, I don't know, social media or social events like parties. All social studies is a stupid way to say history. It's like the rap sheet of history or something like that. Anyway, I would usually snooze through it, but it was a new day and I was turning over a new leaf. So I stayed awake. Didn't really focus too much on nothing being said, but my eyes were wide open. 11:40 a.m. And then lunch. You know who ate lunch the same time I did? Brandon Simmons. Jack from Lord of the Flies. a power-hungry dummy and the single most annoying dude in the 7th grade. He owned that record, a record that's really hard to own because there are a lot of annoying dummies in the 7th grade. Trust me, I know. But none like him. Brandon was a year older than everybody because he stayed back a year. Dude was dumb as dirt. And that wouldn't have been so bad if he was at least cool, but he wasn't. Plus, he was taller than most of us, so he treated everybody like chumps, especially me. Just made it to the cafeteria, 11:44 a.m. Got in line. Brandon came in after me, bumped me, and then seeing that I ignored him, decided to step in front of me. Shaq, he said. Shaq was what he called me as his lame way of making fun of the fact that my name is Castle. You don't mind me butting in front of you, right? I mean, it's not like you haven't had cafeteria food before. You probably had some last night, right? He shrugged and hit me with another one. Right? The only reason Brandon even knew about my mother is back when we were in the 4th grade. Yes, I've known him that long. My mother thought it would be a good idea to come speak at career day, and Brandon has used it as fuel ever since. He grinned, then looked around to make sure other people had heard him, which was always the most important part of his jerkiness. Then a few more, right? Right? I sat at the table, 11:50 a.m., the same table I sat at every day with my 2 friends, Dre Anderson and Red Griffin. I met Dre this year, and we hit it off because he's a ball player too. Plays for the Boys and Girls Club, and he told me I should have played, but I missed the tryouts on purpose. Thing is, Boys and Girls Clubs don't ever really cut nobody. Everybody can just sign up and play, but who wants to be on a team with a bunch of pity players? I didn't want to bust Dre's bubble because that ain't cool, but for me, I'm too good to play on a team like that. I mean, I didn't really know that, but I knew that, you know? And Red, well, I've known him for a long time. We've been cool since 5th grade, mainly because even though we've never really talked about nothing bad, we both kind of knew something bad had happened to us. Like for me, the best way to describe it is I got a lot of scream inside. And I could tell Red did too. He was a white boy with red hair who everybody was friends with, mainly because people were scared that he was crazy, and it's better to be on crazy's good side. Jessica Grant said her mother said the only reason people have red hair is because they're red on the inside. Red like violet. But I got black hair. So does that mean I'm black on the inside? And anyway, Brandon came and sat next to Red at the table. He usually sat further down by the other gas mouths, but not today. Today he sat right next to Red and right across from me and Dre. Yo, Red, you ever been to Glass Manor? Brandon asked while chomping on a chicken drummy. Nope, Red said, dry, just before taking a sip of his juice. He wasn't paying Brandon no mind. Aw, man, you should go. It's something to see, Brandon said, now looking right at me. We caught eyes for a second, but then I darted mine to my french fries and ketchup. Dip, then bite. Dip, then bite. Don't look up. Don't pay him no attention. Dip, then bite. Brandon continued. You really get to see where they got the name Glass Manor from, because, dude, everybody who lives there is freaking shattered. Dre let out a big sigh, like, here we go again, sigh. And Red glanced at me because he knew I lived there. Everybody knew I lived there, and even though I wasn't the only kid at school from that neighborhood, it seemed like I caught the most mess about it, at least from Brandon. Red looked back at Brandon, disgusted, then went on eating. What a dumb joke. Brandon was talking to Monique, who sat next to him, 12:02 p.m. Really, he was snatching food off her plate and teasing her about her acne, but the thing was, everybody knew he had a crush on Monique, no matter how many moon-faced jokes he cracked. Everybody also knew that he tried to get her, but she kept rejecting him, which was the real reason he snapped on her. Her acne wasn't even all that bad. Hey, Shaq, he called out, all you gonna have is fries? Again, I didn't say anything. I didn't have to explain that I always got just fries, so I could save $1 to get sunflower seeds later. So I just ignored him. Just sat there with my empty tray and shook up my chocolate milk. Lunch would be over in a few minutes. A few minutes. I was so close. So close. Then Brandon grabbed a drummy off Monique's tray. Here, take this. It's my good deed for the day. Feeding the hungry. And he threw the chicken wing at me. It hit me in the chest, the grease instantly staining my t-shirt, and if my insides really were black, at that moment they were definitely turning red. Red and Dre looked at me, both their mouths open in disbelief. I could tell they could see the anger in my face, in my eyes. Dre slid down, and Red got up from the table, moved away from us. I brushed the over-fried wing off my lap, opened my milk carton, took a swig, and then, with all my might, beamed the container at Brandon's head. He moved just in time, and the open milk box smashed into the table behind him. Brown liquid exploded everywhere, and everyone at that table whipped around to see what was happening. Brandon sprang from his seat, but before he could even make a move, I had picked up my plastic tray and whacked him upside the head. He fell backwards, and I kept coming. I dove across the table, and after that, it was just like it was when I was sprinting. I didn't hear nothing, not even Monique squealing, and I didn't feel nothing either. I just lifted my arms, fists tight, and lowered them like hammers down into Brandon's face. I had been good, so good, altercation free, for 17 hours and 2 frickin' minutes. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th minute of the 17th hour were the altercation minutes, but the 6th was the longest minute of them all, the embarrassing walk to the principal's office. You want to tell me what happened, or should I tell you? Principal Marshall closed his door behind him and took a seat at his desk. Arms folded across his chest, he waited for me to answer, but I didn't. I just slouched in the chair and stared into my lap, biting on my bottom lip, trying to turn the red inside back to black. I was just so mad, and I couldn't get it to go away. Mr. Perham, or as everybody called him, Big Perm, because of his last name and because he had bone-straight permed hair, is who pulled me off Brandon. He yoked me up in some kind of full Nelson arm lock and practically dragged me to a corner until I calmed down enough for him to let me go. Of course, all the other students were screaming and cheering and all that, like I was putting on some kind of show, another one, but it was never a show for me. It was serious. Next, Perham helped Brandon, and he started leading him to the nurse's office. No smack was coming from Brandon's stupid lips. No mom jokes, no poor jokes, no name jokes, none of that. Just blood and ketchup. Still, I said nothing to the principal. I wasn't about to just snitch on myself. Okay, Mr. Cranshaw, let me tell you what happened, Principal Marshall continued. He leaned forward and rested both hands on his desk, fingers woven. You just got yourself suspended. Again. Dang. I didn't even start it. I couldn't resist muttering. What's that? The principal asked with some extra bass in his voice. I lifted my head. I said I didn't start it. Brandon was talking about me. He kept going on me. I tried to keep a stone face, which is hard to do when you're desperately trying to explain yourself, about how my mother works in a cafeteria, about my neighborhood, and all that. He's always trying me, and he don't even know me like that. Just wouldn't shut up. Marshall leaned back in his seat. So instead of telling a teacher you jumped on him? Well, yeah, Brandon needed a beat down as far as I was concerned. Somebody had to do it, and well, this wasn't the first time I had been in this kind of an altercation. I mean, there was the time I yelled at Mr. Crew because he kept being mean about us not understanding Spanish well enough to speak in the perfect accent or whatever. He was just riding us too hard for not rolling our R's, and one day I just lost it. After class, everybody told me he deserved it, but I still called a detention for it. And then another time, Damon D.W. Woods told everyone that I kissed this girl named Janie, who was the only pretty girl who liked me, but I hadn't, and I hadn't told D.W. that lie. I just told him and me that Janine exchanged phone numbers. Once she found out, Janine said I was disgusting and stopped talking to me. so I punched Devon in the stomach. He cried and ran to Marshall, and I got suspended for that one. And then Janine liked me again. But I was already over her. And me and Brandon had a bunch of other moments, but it was mostly just a lot of yelling. Really, just me yelling at him and laughing, but not no more. No more getting the Brandon runaround. Then it hit me. Run around. Running. The team. Coach made a deal with my mother. I only have one shot. No mess-ups, no do-overs, no altercations. But what was I supposed to do? All right, well, I guess we will have to figure out that on the next episode of Ghost. Stay tuned.